It's just incredible when you have the most important position in pro sports shirt up, how that just changes things. Pop, what's going on, man?
Take 3. We need a behind the scenes
Third time's the charm.
videographer.
Oh my goodness. You know what? Next time I'm gonna put you in a cage for 2.5 hours before we start recording. See how you react. Poor little guy.
I ain't saying nothing.
Let's get into it, guys. Panthers pregame today. Welcome back to the Dom and Pop podcast. If this is your first time, stay tuned. We got Bada Bets coming up, second half of the episode. And once you decide you enjoy it and you like hanging out with us, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Frankly, if you want to do it now, save yourself some time. Just kind of get it off your checklist. We'd appreciate that. But make sure to smash that
Always
subscribe
appreciate
button.
it.
Don't forget to drop a like if you have a good time here. Or if you're just checking in, if you're coming back around, let us know you've been listening. And
hey, it's the best deal in entertainment. Subscribing is free.
Yep.
It's free. Doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to turn the alerts on.
Yeah.
Just hit that subscribe button.
You could turn the alerts on.
If it's for charity, fine. You know? With a middle-aged guy and a young man, just do it. Hopefully you enjoy the podcast and give it a like and subscribe. We love the comments.
Yeah, we've been having a blast with those.
Love the comments. Keep the comments coming.
For sure. Anyways, today is our Panthers at Commanders preview. We are going back home, even though last week was kind of like not a long travel, at least for the guys. You figure the guys on the team are not as worn down as they might have been, but certainly not a home environment by any stretch of the imagination playing over at M&T Bank Stadium. As away as it can possibly feel there. Well, let's get into it, man. Let's hit a little quick. We're going to do a little vibe check to start off. We're 4-2. We're still on top of the NFC East and still seemingly the darling of the NFL at this point. I mean, they just flexed our Bears game in Week 8. They just flexed that to 4:25 p.m. with Romo. So it's basically like the A team. So how are we feeling, man? Do we think this team is for real? How are we feeling after that loss couple days later? Where are the vibes at, Pop?
Well, I said it in the preseason just real quick. That game was circled on my calendar. Bears, Commanders, Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. I think that is going to be get your popcorn out. We had Lamar and Jaden, which was fantastic. 2 just great players. But in terms of, I don't want to look ahead. We got to take care of the Panthers first, right?
Yeah.
And you never know. Any given Sunday, feeling pretty confident about that one. But any given Sunday, we're going to give you the keys to how we're going to win that game later. But my vibe checks of 4-2 are really high. I mean, anyone said we'd be 4-2 at this stage of the season. And, we lost. Our 2 losses are against 2 really good teams, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to rank the NFC teams, I think you'd go Lions, Vikings, Bucks, right? And maybe we're next. But and certainly I think the Ravens are top 2. So 2 really respectable losses, and you could see we're climbing, that we were much more competitive in that Ravens game than we were in the Bucks game. No such things as more victories. But my vibes are high. I feel like the season's in front of us. Yeah. We got almost all of our division games left. I can't wait to play the Eagles. Can't wait to play the Cowboys. Can't wait to sweep the Giants. So we got a lot of the season left in front of us. It's all out in front of us. We talked about that Bears game being a big one. A lot of victories to be had on this schedule. So I'm feeling confident, feeling good about the boys. Got to be feeling great about Jaden Daniels. What a performance. Again on Sunday. I mean, some of those throws were absolutely unreal.
Yeah.
The ball was out quick, hitting that back foot. Just keeps getting better and better in different aspects of his game. Might have been his best game passing the football, just in terms of degree of difficulty of the passes that he was making under what was a Ravens defense that really stepped up. So vibes are high.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same way, man. I'm feeling like we got our guy, we got our franchise quarterback, and that's really, I'm trying to just keep in perspective. As excited as I am about this team and the future, this year, we've already exceeded expectations to start. And we've already, like, I mean, we said, barring Jaden has some kind of historical year, this team is probably going to be in that, like, middle of the pack, maybe squeeze into a seventh seed and then, first round exit kind of year. And all of a sudden, Jaden is in the midst of having a historical year, not just for a rookie, just a historical year period. And we are atop the NFC East. The rest of the division looks pretty weak, frankly. The rest of the division looks very gettable. And things just continue to trend up for this team. I mean, we look like a legitimate contender for the NFC right now, which is wild to say. But I think that's my biggest takeaway from the game. My thoughts about the game, you can check them out last week's pod if you want to get the in-depth analysis on how I feel about that Ravens game. But overall, long and short of it is we hung right with them. We were there, and that's a team that public opinion is very, very high on around the league. And if we can hang with them and have, a lot of things not go our way in that game and still be within a score at the end, and all you need is a stop and a score, um, that's encouraging. That's nothing but encouraging. And like I said after the game, you would have taken, if you told us in January that Jaden was going to throw for almost 270 yards, have 3 total touchdowns, and be, what he was in that game, and we'd lose to the Ravens by 1 score, we would have all taken that.
Yeah,
So,
it was 2 touchdowns, but I get your point.
2 touchdowns, excuse me.
Yeah,
vibes are pretty high. All that to say.
yeah, no question. And like I said, season's out in front of us. There's 11 games to go. So a lot of fun ahead.
Yep. So other Commanders news and notes before we get into the Panthers breakdown, which, spoiler alert, Panthers breakdown won't be the most in-depth breakdown we've ever done here. But we'll get into a few things. But before we get into that Panthers breakdown, yeah, big time. Before we get into that Panthers breakdown, though, let's talk some tough injury news here. John Allen likely out for the season, unfortunately, with a torn pectoral muscle. What will be the impact of that, Bob? How do you feel about John Allen being out?
I there's some scuttlebutt about he hasn't had a great season, but I think that I'm going to go with what Coach Dan Quinn said, and I think it was more than just him saying just nice things about John, just to say nice things about John. I think he does have a big impact. He's a 4-down player. He eats up a lot of blocks.
Yeah.
I think it's a big loss. I think it's a big loss in that rotation. And I feel awful for John because how long did he wait to be on a team like this?
Yeah.
How many terrible coaching styles and terrible rosters and terrible quarterbacks, even though he's on defense, did he have to kind of play through? And now, this, who knows what's next for him in his career. We can get into that offseason talk as a Commander. I hope some way, somehow he can work his way back. Maybe if we get a deep run this season or we get into the playoffs. I don't know what the extent of that injury is and the torn pec and the rehab, but I hope he can work his way back. But I think it's a big loss. Got some depth at that position for sure, but I'm not about, saying it's not a big loss. I think it's a big loss.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line is John Allen is one of the best players on your roster, right? Yeah, all-class guy. Some frustrations with previous administrations and whatever, but been nothing but great recently and for 99% of his career. I mean, frankly, all the stuff that he got criticized for saying was stuff that everybody who criticized him for saying was also saying. So it's kind of silly. But all in all, class guy, hate to see him go out with that torn pec. Wonder how that could have changed the game last week. I mean, losing him and Dorrance Armstrong are two best players on the defensive line, and then proceeding to just get gashed in the run game. It sucks losing those guys. Hopefully, Dorrance Armstrong can get back. But overall, with Allen, you do have Johnny Newton there. You do have Phil Mathis there. This is a position that some premium capital has been invested in recently. And I'm trying to take the glass half full approach where you look at John Allen and you go, okay, this is a guy who's been dominant in the past and is still a very good veteran, but probably on the downslope of his career at this point. And let's see what these young guys can do given more reps, especially Johnny Newton, who's supposed to be a game breaker. I haven't seen the game breaker yet, seen flashes. But let's see what Johnny Newton could do out there. And, maybe, who knows? I mean, maybe getting John Allen not double teamed every play, maybe it starts to open some stuff up for other tackles or whatever. I don't know. I'm trying to be optimistic about it. Reality of it is that's one of the best players on our defense, which is already hurting and already can't stop the run, and he's out. So that's disappointing. There will probably be some roster turnover later this week, I would expect. I bet some veterans come in or some practice squad guys getting signed, or some of those guys that are like, good players but just kind of never made it to a team probably will be brought in, I'd assume. And maybe this makes getting a player on the back end a little bit more important. And that's something we could talk about later on in the pod. We got a segment devoted to that. But Pot,
yeah, I mean, I think the thing is we've got a 4-man rotation on that line, so it's going to impact that, right? Everybody, more guys are going to have to stay up, play more snaps. So hopefully, the other 3 key guys in that rotation, we're going to have to see Daron Payne step up, play a lot better than he has been, and Johnny Newton and who am I missing?
Phil
Mathis, right? Yeah. So, all those guys are going to have to step up for sure.
Yeah. Should be interesting, man. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens there. But I mean,
hate it for John. It for John.
I absolutely hate it for John. Hate it for this team. But sounds like he'll still be hanging around team meetings and kind of,
That's great. I hope we see him again.
So
I hope we see him again.
I hope so too. We'll have to see how things work out. I mean, no guaranteed money left on his deal at this point, which also sucks for the timing of that injury. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, still a significant cap hit next year if we do choose to move on. So I think there's probably a restructure coming down the pike with John Allen, given the injury situation. So
let's hope so.
Yeah, let's get into it here. Pop, next segment. I'm going to kick this one over to you just because, with all due respect to the legend, just before my time, man. Wasn't born. I was barely a twinkle in Pop's eye. Darrell Green will be honored. Number 28 will be retired at this game. So I'm going to kick this one over to Pop. I mean, obviously, I know of the legend of Darrell Green. I know what an impact he had on this franchise and just all-time Redskins legend, one of the greatest players to ever wear the burgundy and gold. But I wasn't there, so I'm going to let Pop break down his favorite moments of Darrell Green playing for the Redskins.
Yeah, I mean, it's so great that they, brought Darrell back into the fold and, retire number 28, and they're honoring him at this next game, and it's amazing. He was a first-round draft pick in 1983, had a super long career. I think he played till he was either 40 or almost 40. But I would say, and just such a great person, If you saw the announcement that, or when they kind of tricked him into reading the teleprompter and understanding that his jersey was getting retired and his whole family there and what he's been about in terms of family, a man of faith, and, giving back to the community. I mean, he sets the example. And I mean, I don't know if you realize how fast Darrell Green was. But,
Yeah,
I mean, he was rumored to have run a 4.09 40-yard dash in 1986 training camp.
it's
He ran a
freakish.
4.24 when he was 40 years old. At the
Yeah,
age of 50, he ran a 4.43. So they used to have this thing back in the day in the 80s. I remember the 80s. In the 80s, they had this thing where they had the fastest man competition in the NFL. People like Willie Galt, who was a track star before he played football. No one could come close to touching Darrell Green. He is probably the fastest player to ever play in the NFL. If you know of someone faster, but it wasn't just about that. He was a tough son of a gun. Small guy, right? Probably shorter than Pop, but was not afraid to stick his helmet in there and make plays. So my favorite memory of Darrell Green, to be honest, is 1984, 88, and 92, the 3 Super Bowls he played in,
yeah,
right? For the 83, 87, and 91 season. He won 2 of those 3. Not bad. And that 83 season, which was his rookie year, we were a 14-2 football team, best team in football. Unfortunately, didn't give our best effort in the Super Bowl that year. But that's my favorite memory of Darrell Green, as being one of the leaders on this team, leading us to Super Bowl victories or Super Bowl appearances. And you got to love that about number 28. But I'd say 2 plays that stand out for me. One is on the run to the 1988 Super Bowl. We were playing the Bears in a wild card game, and he returned a punt 52 yards, and he hurdled one of the Bears in that punt return. I don't know if you've seen the highlight of that, son. If you haven't, you got to check that out. You got to promise me.
for sure.
You'll make that your homework assignment. But he injured himself because he hurdled a bear, and he didn't return punts all the time because they had to save him because he was so valuable as a cornerback. He was a lockdown corner. He was that good. But, he injured himself, but that punt return against the Bears was great. And then my second favorite play, he runs down Tony Dorsett. So for those of you that don't know who Tony Dorsett was, I know a lot of you do. But he was a great running back. It must have pained me to say it. Hall of Fame running back for the Cowboys. Very fast. And Darrell Green runs him down. And I mean, it wasn't like he had a big head start. And he had to get the angle on him. And he chases him down. Tony Dorsett is completely stunned that could happen. And he did that to multiple running backs. I think he did that to other great players as well. So those are my 2 favorite. The Washington Commanders.com has a story that gives their favorite plays. Go check it out. Do your research on Darrell Green if you don't know. He's one of the all-time greats, without a doubt, in my mind, a Mount Rushmore Washington Redskin.
Definitely. For sure. Yeah, just the GOAT. One of the best ever.
Love him.
Congrats to him. Really great to see new ownership kind of making it right. I know there's a very fractured relationship with him and old ownership. So happy to see with the Harris takeover things shaping up. But Pop absolutely crushed that segment, man. I'm always happy to pass one off to you and give the old vocal cords a little rest. But Pop called his shot there and he hit it. That was awesome. Let's get into it, man. Let's hit this Panthers scouting report. I tell you what, feels almost sacrilegious to start talking about this team after mentioning Darrell Green because ain't much in common there. I mean, they do have a great young quarterback in J.C. Horn on the defensive side of the ball, but that's about all they've got going on. This Panthers team is rough, dude. This is not a good Panthers team at all. They're more effective with Andy Dalton than they were with Bryce Young. It's kind of like the Joe Flacco effect, not quite as dominant as Flacco was or is when he comes into play, but it's kind of like the Joe Flacco effect. It's a veteran, played a long time ago, still got the ability to kind of process, get through his reads, hit the open man, but obviously not going to do anything sensational at quarterback there. Deontay Johnson's good wide receiver, solid guy. Figure you'll see him get a lot of targets. It's a guy that's just always open, no matter what. And Dalton seems to really like finding him there. Otherwise, I mean, what do you got? You got Adam Thielen out there. Not much to fear in terms of the wide receiver core. Running back Chuba Hubbard is playing well. He's averaging
good
about
player.
five and a half to 6-ish yards a carry. Good player, like Pop said, but not much to be afraid of, man. Here, let's be honest. This is a bad team. We should really um, kick them in the mouth pretty good, and I expect them to do so. And I think that you see what they did against Arizona. You saw what they did against Cleveland. You saw what they did against, to a lesser extent, the Giants, minus the red zone woes. But that was proven to be fluky based on the weeks after that. So I think there's just no way that this team doesn't smack this team around. This just doesn't feel like a trap game type of team.
Yeah.
But we'll see. So
I mean, anything can happen. They do have one win this year.
Sure.
So beat the Raiders pretty handily. But it should be a game we could take care of business. I mean, they've got the 29th ranked defense against our top 5 offense. So that's a pretty good matchup. And they're not very good on offense either, which might be, good news for the weaker part of our team, which is the defense. But it should be, I agree with you, it should be something that we should be able to take care of business. And we'll get into how we do that here next with our keys. But got to be feeling good about this match. Not that we kind of need to get well. There's nothing wrong with, playing the Ravens tough and losing that game. But it's a good chance to get healthy. And you got to honor Darrell Green. Got to win this one for number 28. Got to
definitely. I feel like I said, I've said multiple times, I feel like we left a little bit of meat on the bone last week, coming away from that game, feeling like you could have done better in a few key areas and got an opportunity to do that. I think this is the context of, this is the type of get-right game you want. You want to have a get-right game after a one-score loss that was kind of sloppily played and against a really, really good team, rather than a get-right game after getting blown out by Buffalo or something like that.
Yeah.
This is the way winning teams, like when San Francisco needs a get-right game, although maybe not this year, but when San Francisco needs a get-right game, this is what it looks like, not these egregious blowouts. So I think this is a get-right game for us, and I think let's talk about 3 keys to a win to get right after that Ravens loss. Number 1, then we come out strong, score early and often, and get defensive stops. We don't want to let them hang around. It's just the bottom line. You want to just, by the end of the first quarter, you want to go like, okay, cool. You want to kind of get that feeling where you're not really, it's like the Cleveland game, right? Where they just like, you're like, all right, let's go up 17-3 before the half and get the ball back. That'll work. Like that's a position you want to be in. You want to kind of be chilling out. Pop's got to go to bed pretty early that night, so hopefully fire up the podcast kind of once they pull Jay Daniels in the 4th. We can just kind of get it rolling. But you got to reestablish the running game in order to do that. That's going to be our number 2 key, is to reestablish the run game and make play action passes. I thought it was a pretty curious use of the running backs. Last week, I saw a lot less Jeremy McNichols than I thought I'd see, just given that he's kind of a little more of a thumper between him and Eckler. Yeah. Eckler's obviously just not a between-the-tackle guy at all anymore at this stage in his career. And we didn't see – that's what I was anticipating. I was anticipating to see McNichols take on the Brian Robinson role and Eckler just keep Eckler's role. And in reality, we just kind of got rid of the Brian Robinson role and did not replace that with any more running. So that's not going to work. It didn't work last week. That was
and Rodriguez is a bit of a pounder. I mean, if you really want to have that effect on the defense, give him a shot. This kid showed some flashes last time too. I agree. That's a great observation by you.
Yeah.
This really and I think they hit the panic button a little bit because they were down on the scoreboard. We were down on the scoreboard. Sorry, not they. We were down on the scoreboard, and we were worried about, I think it's a situation of not only being down 7 or down 10 or whatever, 14, but also feeling like we can't stop them. So we've got to score quick, and we got to hope for something happening on defense. And I think that's what they got sucked into, and that's why they got away from running the ball. Right.
Yeah. So no reason to be in that position against this team.
No.
Make sure you establish that run. and that'll open up the play action pass, which has been really good for us this year. Who would have thought rookie quarterback play action helps them out a little bit? I know it was a foreign concept last year, but it's certainly working out here. And the number 3 is going to be pressure Andy Dalton, force mistakes. Chuba Hubbard as well has fumbled twice this year already. So have an eye on that. A little Bobby Wagner peanut punch maybe. But Andy Dalton in general, don't play it on that guy moving around in the pocket.
I think they could load up. This could be another 5-sack or better type game.
Yeah, you certainly don't expect Andy Dalton to be moving around much. Certainly not any better or worse than Deshaun Watson. I mean,
yeah, should be a good day.
Yeah. So that's going to be number 3 is just pressure Dalton, force those mistakes. Definitely easy to speed Dalton up and get an interception or something there. But overall, those are the 3 keys. And what do you say we get into our prediction pop? The Commanders right now -7.5. I think the line opened at -8.5. And was probably just getting hammered, so they moved it to -7.5. I'm still taking the boys to cover this, which is I can guarantee you I've never said we're going to cover a 7.5 point line on this podcast, but I think we're going to cover it.
I got to stick with the boys. I think if we play our game, it's a better than a 7.5 point win. And so, yeah. And I think, I was thinking as we were going through the keys, you sit here and you just sit here confident because of number 5.
Yeah.
Like, I just feel so confident that this offense is going to execute on Sunday and put up points. I'd be shocked if we're not in the 30s.
Yeah.
At minimum, and that wins this game without a doubt, because I think our defense is going to, look good against this offense.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think the bottom line is like, look, we always kind of had that. It's just incredible when you have the most important position in pro sports shirt up, how that just changes things for a team and an organization. Because for years it was like, we should beat this team, but and then Taylor Heineke
last year this would have been
interception.
They would have had us circled on the schedule to get a win.
Exactly. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, we had that conversation so many times last year. Maybe that conversation comes up again in our Bears pregame, because 2 organizations that kind of were that get right game for a while for a lot of teams, not so much anymore. But either way, we got that there. Quickly around the NFL, do a little bit of trade news. This news broke today as we're recording this. We usually record this on Tuesday nights. So this news broke today. You guys have probably already heard it by now, but just touch on it. Devontae Adams to the Jets for a 3rd-round pick. It's a conditional 2nd rounder, but the conditions on the 2nd rounder are pretty. I don't know if you know them, Pop, but they're pretty he's either got to make 1st or 2nd team All Pro, or they have to make an AFC Championship game. So that's a 3rd-round pick. At this stage in the game, I mean, there's just Devontae Adams is just not going to do that at this point in the season, I don't think, not with the start that he's had. Amari Cooper will be going to the Bills for a pick swap. So the Bills get Cooper and a 6th for a 3rd and a 7th to the Browns. So pretty much the exact same trade as the Jahan Dotson trade. And that's what I think is so funny about this, is that we said, man, you didn't get enough. We felt like you wondered if we got enough for Jahan Dotson when we traded him. And sure enough, this is not the dunk on Dotson at all, but just for how things worked out for the organization. I think you would take both of those guys over Jahan, right?
Yeah.
And we got the same comp for them. So how's that for Adam Peters and for the unmissable Howie Roseman, who never makes a mistake? Worked out pretty
That's a
good.
great. Now that's a great point. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think Amari Cooper is a great pickup for the Bills.
Yeah, it's a great play.
He's an excellent player. And Devontae Adams. I mean, it's interesting that he's with the Jets. That's what the rumor was all along. And I guess to their credit, Aaron Rodgers said today, we got pretty much we got no excuses left. We got to go
Yeah.
make it happen.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. They played pretty well this week against the Bills.
Yeah,
That
sure.
was a good ball game. So we'll see how that works out. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun to watch. And I expect Cooper just to, do not. He's just such a pro. He reminds me a lot of Terry.
Yeah.
Amari Cooper reminds me a lot of Terry.
I
Tough
agree.
guy, and good teammate, and just a pro's pro. He seemed pretty frustrated in that game we played against them
Oh my
with the
God, how could
Browns.
you not be?
Can't imagine how happy he probably is at this point to go to a Super Bowl contender in the Bills, right?
Yeah, I mean, we said it after that Browns game. He was running wide open all day. He was running wide open, and then we saw what happens when you get a quarterback who can deliver that the week after. But yeah, Cooper's definitely still got it. Is just production's taking a hit because of Watson. I think this is a hell of a move for the Bills. I'm excited to see how this works out.
Yeah.
I got some Josh Allen fantasy stock this year, so this is good for me because his passing numbers have been dwindling because he's throwing to Curtis Samuel and company out there, which
Is
is
there a better receiving
not
core
much.
than the Jets got right now with
Oh my gosh!
Devontae Adams added?
Yep, got him too. So that is good to see. I just hope it's I need either Devontae Adams to go crazy or Garrett Wilson to go crazy, but I can't have both of them split the production because that hurts the boy. We got one or the other. They've got to consume. One's got to consume the other. Anyways, real quick.
It's pretty wild that there's a rash of trades. I mean, trade deadline's not till November 5th.
Yeah.
So that was pretty wild to just see this boom, boom, boom. There's a couple others we haven't mentioned because they're lower end, but crazy.
Yeah.
All of a sudden today, there's all these trades popping out there.
Yeah, we're seeing it more and more with this trade deadline thing. It's just becoming more and more of a factor this year. But overall, Pop, 60 seconds on the clock. Commanders trade moves. I think they are not going to make the splashes you all want them to make. I would be interested in. I'd mortgage the farm for Max Crosby if he becomes available. I don't think he becomes available. I don't think he wants to leave Vegas. I don't think he cares how good or bad they are. Otherwise, I'd really do some thinking about Hassan Reddick. I think pass rusher is where we should add, but ultimately, I don't think any of those pieces become available at a price that Adam Peters is willing to pay. Unfortunately,
Adam
he seems to be
Peters is
more
on
conservative
record.
about that.
Adam Peters is on record saying he wants to build through the draft.
Yeah.
Shouldn't mortgage the farm for anybody, quite honestly, right? Adam Peters has said he wants to build through the draft. So I think we need to be, wouldn't mind if we could do something where we could pick up a defensive back that we think has a future, with the team. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I got a feeling they're either going to stand pat or maybe they unload a vet for more picks.
Yeah.
But given the fact that they are in contention, I don't know that unloading a vet for more picks is the right move. So,
well, if you looked at the production to money ratio, obviously Deron Payne kind of sticks out right now, but the John Allen injury you need him now.
That's not doable.
Even if Payne is not producing at the level that you want him to be, which he's not, you got to keep him in the building now.
Maybe this lights a spark in him. Who knows?
I don't know. Anyways.
And I feel like with D tackles, it's the hardest position to rate because you look for things like tackles and sacks and that stuff. And those guys, they're eating blocks up. They're doing other things that are really helping the defense that we just don't see on the stat sheet. And they don't flash in games. And so, these guys could be playing a lot better than we think. And we just don't know it.
Sure.
Yeah.
But either way, I don't see any big moves being made. I mean, I think maybe if a Denzel Ward is made available or a Greg Newsome is made available, even though I'm not super excited about Greg Newsome, to be honest. But who knows? Things are getting weird in the NFL with this trade deadline stuff, man. It's becoming more and more like the NBA, which I love. I think it's fun. Um, but
It
yeah,
is fun.
we shall see how that pans out. I would be stoked if we got a Denzel Ward, a J.C. Horn, even a Greg Newsome. Jalen Ramsey is another name being tossed around. I'd be thrilled to get any of them. But let's get into the Bada Bets, Pop. What do you say?
I think we need to.
Yeah, I got to get into it here. We were both 4-1 in week 6. Me and Pop were in lockstep. So I am 18-3 on 18-13.
Woo!
Excuse me, 18-13 on the year. Pop is 17-14 on the year. So both crews here balling. Let's get into it. Thursday Night Football, Broncos -2.5 at Saints. Gotta imagine this is going to be the highest rated game since Commanders Ravens. Just going to be an absolute barn burner here.
Bit of a stinker.
Yeah, total stinker. I will take the Broncos at home because I think that defense is really good, and I
Broncos
don't.
are on the road.
Oh, they're on the road. They're 2.5-point favorites on the road.
Yep.
Okay, then I'll take the Saints.
Yeah, I'm going Saints in this one.
Is Carr out?
He might be.
That's why they're favorites. Yeah, I'm sorry. If you're still with us, drop a subscribe here, guys. I'm switching back to Broncos. I'm not betting on no Spencer Rattler at this point in his career. Let me get the Broncos. So you're officially down for Saints, even with Carr
I
out.
wasn't thinking about the car news, man. We're firing on all cylinders here today. So do we know for sure that he's out?
It's an oblique injury. He wasn't at practice today. Oblique injuries are not usually a 1 week thing. I'm going to go with he's out. Well, this line is showing that he's out.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it seems
here.
like there's a lot of uncertainty around his injury.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell. I'm gonna go Saints. I'm gonna stick with the Saints.
I got the Broncos. I think they're putting something together there. I think Bo Nix actually playing pretty okay. Sunday at 1:00, Texans at Packers. Packers 2.5-point favorites here. I am going to take the Packers. What do you like, Bob?
You know, I just picking against the Texans has not worked for me. I feel like we've been a little disrespectful for how good that team is. I'm thinking back to the Bills game. So I'm going to go Texans here.
I think we've also been a little bit disrespectful of how good the Packers have been. And you want to talk? We've talked.
Packers are good. Packers are good, but I think this is going to be a tight game. And
yeah,
Packers are favored by 2.5. So I mean, Texans.
We've talked Coach of the Year on here a couple times with O'Connell and Dan Quinn. I think both being at the top of that list, but Matt LaFleur can't be too far behind, especially with Jordan Love getting hurt to start the season and what he did with Malik Willis.
Yeah,
he's a heck of a coach that doesn't get talked about enough. But I'll take the Packers here. I'm rolling with my boy Jordan Love, man. It's worked for me so far. I'm going to keep doing it. Lions at Vikings. Vikings 2.5-point favorites here. This is a dart throw. I'll go first. I'm taking the Lions. I think Dan Campbell's getting the boys fired up. I think Dan Campbell's going, we've been here. Minnesota just showed up. Let's kick some ass. I'm taking the Lions.
I agree. I think they give the Vikings their first loss of the season. Yep. I'm going Lions as well for all the reasons you just stated.
Yep. Chiefs at 49ers. Man, this is a good day of football, man.
Bonus 49ers,
game. 1.5-point favorites popped through this one in here. It was just too good to miss.
I threw it in here, but I didn't think about it that much.
Taking Kansas City.
You know, I'm going 49ers at home.
Pop is zagging hard.
I'm going 49ers at home. I think this is the week of where the undefeateds drop. Niners look good that last game. They look like they put it back together.
The Niners have been in a constant state of falling apart and putting it back together this year, and the Chiefs have just been quietly kicking everybody's
But it's
ass
on the
on their
road.
way to
That's a
three-peat.
sneaky, tough place to play.
Sure. I'm taking Kansas City. I
Going
don't bet against the
49ers.
Chiefs.
I think I could have a rough week this week.
Yeah, Pop might want to. We might need to edit this segment, redo it. Jets, Pop betting against the Chiefs and betting on Spencer Rattler. All right, Jets -1.5 at Steelers. He could be a genius. Pop, important note here. Russ Wilson expected to start for the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. What is going on there? I'll take the Jets. What do you like, Pop?
I like the Jets as well.
Yeah,
I feel like I was impressed with how they played against the Bills. I feel like there's some encouragement that could come out of that game. That was a battle. I mean, that just looked like two really good football teams. I mean, in a different circumstance, but you walk away from the Ravens Commanders thinking that's two really good football teams battling it out. That's what I got out of watching the Jets and Bills. And I think they'll be boosted by Devontae Adams. And yeah, that Steelers team wins ugly. They could certainly win this one ugly. They're certainly capable of doing that.
sure.
But I don't know. I like the Jets here. I don't get the whole Russ Wilson situation either, but that we're kind of running out of time to address that here.
I'll say it here, left hand up. I do think you said it was like the Commanders Ravens in the sense that it's two really good teams battling out. I think the Jets and the Bills are both a tier below those two teams. But
it just had that vibe to it.
It did have that with two very evenly matched teams kind of going back and forth trading.
Which was surprising, right?
Yeah.
Right. So
Monday night, Ravens, 3.5-point favorites at the Bucks. You want to talk about sneaky tough places to play.
Already writing down the Bucks
in Tampa.
Wondered for Dom.
This is a hard one. It really is, and it's not even like I'm doing my best to take my bias out of it. It's a hard one because tough fought win that you had to sweat a little more than you thought you might have to at home. Now you're going on the road to play what I think is an even better team. I think the Bucks are top 3 in the NFC right now. That's tough. I'll let you go first, Pop. What do you like?
I don't think it's that tough. Ravens are rolling. I'm going Ravens.
All right.
Best team in the NFL over the last 4 weeks by far. They're rolling. They're confident.
Yeah.
They figured out the formula. Their defense is on the rise. I think they're by far 3.5 points better than the Bucks, in my opinion. Now the Bucks are at home. Good football team. Could certainly go the other way if the Ravens don't bring their A game. But I got a feeling national TV, they're going to bring their A game. Not the toughest place to play in the world. Weather's always pretty good. Going Ravens all the way.
Yeah, you talked me into it. I'll roll with the Ravens as well. I wanted to see where your head was at and kind of figure out how I felt about it.
Just wanted to tell me. I get it.
No, I'll roll with the Ravens as well. I don't love it, but I'll roll with the Ravens as well.
Pick with your head, not your heart, son.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, I think the Bucks are good. I'll say this.
Could be a great football game. Could be a great football game.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucks at least cover this and or just win outright. It would not surprise me. But
I think it's one of those games.
Ravens are hot right now.
The Bucks will come ready to play. The Bucks will, if the Ravens don't come with their A game, the Bucks will win this football game. So the Ravens got to play well. But I'm banking on them continuing to roll. I mean, that was a very impressive showing, I think, that we saw in person on Sunday. So,
yeah, I mean, there's just they played perfectly on Sunday, minus the Lamar pick, which, depending on who you talk to, I think a ball was behind them, but is a fluky tip ball situation. They played perfect. If the Ravens play perfect like that, there's nobody in the NFL that can beat them. So if they bring that, yeah, they're going to wipe the floor with Tampa. So I guess that's what we're betting on. But let's wrap this thing up, Pop. We did it. The pigs are flying. Dom has betted on the Ravens. The sky's falling. Hell is cold.
I don't think you should feel good about that, insider.
It's getting weird around here. I'm trying to protect that 1-game lead I got over Pop, even though I think Pop might give me a few this week. Anyways, let's wrap this thing up here.
It's going to
Pop.
go one of two ways for Pop this week.
Yeah, statement week for Pop, sticking his neck out. Anyways, let's wrap this thing up. I've been Dom.
This is Pop.
Thank you all for another great week, and hail to the Commanders.
Hail.